Hi there, I'm Shanda. My parents threw me a surprise party to celebrate my promotion, becoming partner at one of the top investment firms in Savannah. There were toasts, laughter, even a gift. But the real surprise? They used the party to trick me into signing away control of my $5 million savings. That night, I found out the people who raised me were quietly rewriting my life behind my back. And that was just the beginning. Fake documents, identity theft, even an arrest. How far would your family go? For power? For money? You think you've seen betrayal? Just wait. When my mother called and insisted on throwing me a surprise party for my promotion, I should have trusted my gut. Carla had never celebrated my wins, only used them to posture for others. But she said all the right words. You've worked so hard, sweetheart. Let us show you off a little. I didn't argue. I never do. That's how they train you in this family. Be agreeable, don't make noise. The restaurant sat along the Savannah riverfront, lit up with strings of gold lights like something out of a southern wedding catalog. As I stepped out of the car, a breeze carried the smell of roasted seafood and perfume. The valet greeted me, then disappeared with the keys. I stood outside the double-glass doors, took one deep breath, and walked in. Surprise! They shouted before I even took 3 steps. My mom led the charge, clapping like she'd won a game. My dad, Lowell, lifted his glass from across the room. My younger brother, Devin, sat near the bar, already swirling his drink with that lazy grin he used when he thought he'd gotten away with something. "Madeline, baby, you look stunning," Carla sang, pulling me in for a hug that felt more like a performance. "We are so proud of you." The crowd clapped again as I was ushered toward a table in the center. As I sat, Carla stood and tapped her glass. "This woman right here," she began, "has made it. Partner at Baxter and Keene. But she's more than her title. She's the legacy this family builds on." Legacy. That word hit me wrong. Not because it was flattering, but because it sounded rehearsed. Her eyes scanned the room like she was selling something. That's when Lowell slid an envelope across the table toward me, smiling like a man who thinks he's being charming. "Just a little something to protect what's ours," he said, patting my hand like I was 5. Inside the envelope, documents labeled Joint Asset Trust Realignment. I didn't blink, didn't flinch, just unfolded the first page while my champagne sat untouched. My name was there, listed as a limited custodian, beneath a legal clause transferring primary control of my $5 million portfolio to a holding company under my parents' names. No discussion, no warning, just a signature line at the bottom, already marked with a faint X. I looked up. They were all watching, expecting gratitude. I smiled. Then something caught my eye. Lowell's wrist. That Rolex, the one my grandfather gave me, kept in my locked safe for years. He never asked to wear it. I never gave it to him, and now it sat on his wrist like it belonged there. They'd been in my home, in my safe. This wasn't just about assets. This was theft, with wine pairings and polite applause. I stayed silent. I didn't flip the table or scream. I just tucked the envelope back in, folded my napkin, and stood up. The room kept laughing, drinking, living in the lie they'd rehearsed. But something inside me broke clean. They didn't know it yet, but that night, they lost me. And I smiled, just enough to hide the earthquake happening in my chest. The party ended like nothing had happened. I shook hands, thanked people, posed for pictures, performed the part they'd written for me. But by the time I got back to my apartment, the mask had cracked. I dropped my heels by the door, peeled off the tight dress, and wrapped myself in an old hoodie. It was past midnight, but I knew I wasn't going to sleep. I poured a glass of water, then pulled out the folder they gave me. At the kitchen table, I reviewed every line under warm light and cold clarity. The wording wasn't just manipulative, it was strategic. Legal terms misused just enough to confuse, formatted to suggest consent, not demand it. The final page made me freeze. My signature, not just typed, printed, scanned, and placed in faded ink, but I never signed anything. I grabbed my phone and sent pictures of the entire packet to Maura, my best friend since college. The only person who's seen me come apart and didn't look away. She's also the sharpest lawyer I know. 10 minutes later, she was on video call, glasses down her nose, robe still on. "That's not your signature," she said flatly. "Nope. And you didn't authorize any joint asset realignment?" "Not a chance." Her expression shifted from tired to furious in seconds. "Madeline, this is forgery. But there's more. I just pulled your investment access log. Someone tried to use a secondary login from your name." "That's not possible." Maura raised an eyebrow. "It is if they created a duplicate profile using your birth certificate." She turned her screen so I could see it. "And this was registered under your name, but the contact address is your parents' house." I stared at the screen. My stomach churned. They cloned my identity. Worse, they set up an entire legal paper trail to take what's yours and cover their tracks. That's when I stood up, went to the hallway, opened my personal safe. The Rolex was gone, sure, but I kept a second folder, one with original property deeds, passwords, and a notarized record of my private trusts. It was gone too. Not misplaced. Removed. "They were in here," I whispered. "They knew where to look." "Do you want to press charges now?" Maura asked. "Not yet," I said. "But lock everything. My name, my trust, my firm credentials. I want every access point shut down. No one touches anything without me." She nodded. I called my bank and froze all access. Then I sat in the silence of my apartment, staring at a wall that suddenly felt thinner, like everything I knew had been peeled back. They hadn't just tried to steal money. They tried to rewrite who I was. I wasn't just dealing with theft. I was dealing with betrayal from someone who knew my secrets. By noon the next day, the adrenaline had worn off, but my alertness hadn't. Maura texted me. "Don't go anywhere alone today. Meet in public. Stay sharp." I agreed. That's when I remembered the message I got 2 days ago. From Jeremy. Jeremy and I hadn't spoken in over 5 years. We were close in college, but life moved us apart. He texted after seeing my LinkedIn update about the promotion. "Let's catch up sometime. Coffee on me?" I replied yes. Something about his timing now felt too convenient to ignore. Downtown Savannah was buzzing, but the coffee shop we chose was tucked into a quieter block. When I walked in, he was already seated, 2 drinks on the table. "Still like almond milk, right?" he asked, smiling wide. I smiled back but didn't sit. "Let's talk." He chuckled nervously. "Wow, okay, straight to it." I finally sat, watching him over the rim of my cup. His eyes scanned my face like he was trying to read a script he hadn't fully memorized. We traded pleasantries, where he worked now, what he'd been up to. Then came the subtle pivot. "So, big promotion," he said. "Baxter and Keene doesn't give out partner to just anyone. You running your own portfolio now?" "Something like that." "And your trust fund, you ever consider rolling it into a boutique hedge project? I have contacts." "Jeremy," I cut in, "why are you really here?" His jaw twitched. "I'm just interested in opportunities. You always had the head for it." I pressed record on my phone inside my coat pocket. "I'm not a venture," I said evenly, "and this feels rehearsed." He leaned back, face coloring. "Relax, I'm just making conversation." But I saw the twitch in his left eye, the way his thumb tapped the table, the same nervous habit he had before oral finals in undergrad. He was lying. The meeting ended without a scene. I told him I had a call and left, but before I reached my car, my phone rang. "Hi, Miss Langston, this is Angela at Trust First. Just confirming. We received an identity verification request earlier today from someone claiming to represent you legally." My throat dried. That wasn't me. Thought so. Just wanted to double check. I thanked her and hung up. Back home, I opened the recording and sent it to Maura. She called almost instantly. "Shanda, in the background. Listen closely." She boosted the audio. A voice, female, whispered but clear, giving Jeremy prompts. Rehearsed. Maura didn't need to tell me who it was. It was my mother. She hadn't just paid Jeremy to betray me. She'd coached him, word for word. I barely slept. By dawn, I was sitting at my dining table with Maura on speaker, her voice steady even after pulling an all-nighter reviewing evidence. "You ready for this?" she asked. "I was born ready," I said. "I just didn't know what for." At 9:15 a.m. sharp, I walked into the office of Wendell Sharp, my grandmother Vera's attorney. The waiting room smelled like old paper and lemon polish. Wendell stood when he saw me, older now but still sharp-eyed and precise, like he could see straight through you if you lied. Vera left instructions, he said without small talk. I wasn't allowed to contact you until a trigger event occurred. I assume this counts, I said. He nodded, then unlocked a cabinet and retrieved a thick white envelope and a USB labeled in handwriting I recognized instantly. For Shanda, if they ever try. Inside his office, I plugged the USB into his laptop. Vera's voice filled the room. The woman who'd taught me how to tie my first tie, how to double-check contracts, how to never apologize for being the smartest person in the room. Sweetheart, she said, her voice warm but firm. If you're watching this, they crossed the line. I knew they would. That's why I built safeguards into your trust. If anyone tries to manipulate you into signing over your rights, the entire estate reroutes to a list of nonprofit beneficiaries. No signatures, no court needed. Just proof. My throat tightened. Wendell handed me a copy of the clause. It was there, buried in legalese. Any sign of coercion voids the family's claim. The document was ironclad. Even my mother couldn't rewrite that. I walked out of his office not just with a copy of the trust, but with leverage. Real binding leverage. That evening, back at my apartment, Maura called again. Her voice had an edge of disbelief. You need to see this, she said. A screenshot hit my inbox. A message from Jeremy sent to the wrong group chat. It read, met with her, asked about funds. We'll push more next week. Carla's script worked. He had actually written it down. My mother's name, right there in pixels. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it confirmed everything. This wasn't paranoia. This was a playbook, and they were sloppy. I closed my laptop and stared out the window, city lights flickering like warning signs. They thought they were still writing the story. They had no idea the next chapter was mine. If they wanted a performance, I'd give them one, but it wouldn't be the kind they wrote. Monday morning hit like thunder. I reserved the largest conference room at my firm and told the receptionist to only allow the names I'd listed. No extras, no surprises. By 9:05, they arrived. Carla in pearls, Lowell pretending not to sweat, Devin silent as always. Maura was already seated beside me, Wendell Sharp flanking her. I stood at the head of the table, arms folded. Thanks for coming, I said. Let's make this quick. The lights dimmed. I played Vera's video. Silence followed every word. Her voice didn't crack. Mine didn't either. You each had a choice, I said when it ended. But you chose manipulation. You crossed legal boundaries and moral ones. Lowell shifted. Carla crossed her arms. Devin looked everywhere but at me. So here's where we stand, I continued. Any further attempt to interfere with my accounts, trusts, or name will result in a full audit, legal and forensic. I have already retained a second firm, independent from this one, to oversee that if necessary. Carla scoffed. We're your family. You're really threatening us with lawsuits? No, I'm promising consequences, I said. You made this choice. I'm just drawing the line. The meeting ended with no handshakes. I didn't expect any. But by afternoon, Maura walked into my office, her face pale. She handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a printed letter, badly forged, but damning in intent. It claimed Maura had influenced my legal decisions for her own benefit. Dated, signed, anonymous. They think this will work? I asked. They're hoping to fracture trust, Maura replied. You and me. I drove to my parents' house that evening. Alone. Carla opened the door with her favorite smug smile. I figured you'd come to your senses, she said. I handed her the letter. This is desperate, I said. You're losing control and this is the best you've got? A fake accusation against the one person who's protected me? She didn't flinch. You think you're the only one who knows how to play hardball? No, I said, but I'm the only one playing fair. I walked away without waiting for a response. Back at home, I locked my front door like I was sealing a vault. The next move wasn't mine, but I knew it was coming. I woke up to war. Before I even got out of bed, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Calls, emails, notifications. The first subject line read, Greedy daughter kicks out parents after cashing in. Another said, From humble to heartless, the downfall of a local success story. A blog I'd never heard of had published a hit piece. Anonymous sources, photos from the promotion party, Direct quotes that I hadn't given, but sounded just close enough to things I'd said to pass for truth. Carla's fingerprints were all over it. I scrolled down to the comment section. Mistake number 1. Strangers with avatars of eagles and pickup trucks calling me soulless, gold digger, typical millennial brat. I wasn't angry. Not yet. But I was focused. I dressed for work like I was going into court. When I got to the office, the front desk handed me a note from a client. Polite on the surface, but questioning my ethics. A partner cornered me before I reached my desk. Maybe sit this week out, he said. Let it blow over. Or maybe I stand in the fire and make sure everyone knows I didn't start it, I said. I called Maura. We're filing a cease and desist, I told her. And if this escalates, I'll file for defamation too. She was already ahead of me, but I needed to do more than fight in court. I needed to remind people who I actually was. I recorded a video that afternoon. No script, no edits, just me, steady, direct, unapologetic. I spoke about boundaries, manipulation, and the weight of protecting your name when the people hurting you share your blood. I didn't mention anyone by name. I didn't have to. By evening, the video had gone viral, but this time, with support. Women from across the country messaged me, thanking me for saying what they'd been too afraid to admit out loud. Carla said nothing, not publicly, not even a denial. But silence can be loud when you know what it's hiding. Just after midnight, Maura called. Devin's name came up, she said. IRS flagged a transfer tied to your family trust, under his credentials. My fingers curled around the phone. They didn't just want my money. They were willing to burn their own to get it. The next morning, I skipped coffee and went straight to Maura's office. She was already there, hunched over her laptop with a look that said this got worse. They used Devin, she said. Shell transactions routed through his credentials. Your trust fund listed as the source. Who signed them? I asked. His name, his email, but not his signature. By noon, the IRS flagged 3 separate transfers. The amounts weren't huge, but the pattern was unmistakable. It looked like someone was testing the wires, seeing how far they could go before getting caught. And they'd gone far enough. Then came the second wave. A blog post, another anonymous tip, this time accusing Maura of manipulating me into transferring assets. The source? A photoshopped email chain showing her drafting messages for me. Complete fiction, accompanied by a blurry photo of us at lunch, captioned, Power Behind the Throne. They're escalating, I said, trying to cut you out. They're isolating you, she replied. That's the goal. An hour later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a manila envelope and a typed message. Walk away before she takes you down too. It included a fake draft complaint. Legalese meant to sound threatening, accusing Maura of fraud. I handed it back without reading the rest. We're not playing defense anymore. I called Wendell, set the wheels in motion. That afternoon, I filed a formal fraud report. Devin was arrested that evening at a co-working space downtown. The charges weren't formal yet, but they were real. Carla called 3 times. I didn't pick up. Then a text. This has gone too far. Fix it, please. I stared at it, then typed back. You taught me. Every choice has a cost. That night, I watched the news like a spectator. Devin's mugshot flashed across the screen. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt clear. And that was more powerful than anger. By Friday morning, the city buzz had shifted. The news cycle hadn't moved on, because I hadn't let it. I walked into Wendell's office with a signature and a purpose. The final clause of Vera's trust wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The Vera Foundation would launch that night. 20% of my firm's annual profit redirected to support survivors of financial abuse. Quietly locked in, irrevocably binding. Wendell smiled. Your grandmother knew. She always knew this day might come. I nodded. Then it's time. An hour later, news of the foundation broke. Carla reacted exactly how I expected, loudly and with venom. She's buying sympathy, she told a local reporter, spending what was meant for family on strangers. But this time, it didn't land. People remembered the smear tactics, the silence, the mugshots. This time, her mask cracked and stayed cracked. Later that afternoon, Lowell knocked on my office door. I hadn't invited him. He didn't ask to come in. I won't waste your time, he said. He looked old, not in age, but in regret. I started therapy, he said. For real this time. I waited. He glanced at the framed picture of Vera on my shelf. She believed in you. I didn't. And I won't ask you to forgive me. I just needed to say that. I didn't reply, just nodded once. That was enough. By nightfall, the launch was set. The Savannah Arts Hall was filled, but I didn't look at the crowd when I stepped up to the mic. I looked straight ahead, calm, unshaken. Sometimes protecting your peace means disappointing everyone who profits from your silence. Applause followed. I didn't linger for praise. I left the stage and slipped into the side hallway, breathing easier than I had in weeks. Back home, a letter lay under my door. No envelope, just paper folded twice, from Carla. It wasn't an apology, it was a list. Account numbers, access dates, how she coached Jeremy, what she told Devin. It was everything. A confession, or maybe just a purge, not for closure, for her own guilt. I read it once, filed it away. Then I brewed tea, opened a clean project folder, and titled it, Next. Some wounds close. Others teach you how to build better armor. Weeks had passed. Autumn crept in with cooler winds, and the chaos faded into something quieter. I was back to my routines, long workdays, evenings at the foundation, learning how to rebuild without the noise of betrayal echoing in every corner. Then came the invitation, a youth financial conference in Boston. They wanted me to speak. At first I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I was ready to be more than a cautionary tale. But maybe that was the point. The room was packed. Teens, college students, non-profit leaders. I stood behind the podium, notes untouched. My family didn't lose me because of money, I said. They lost me because they treated my boundaries like they were optional. I didn't tremble, I didn't break, and I didn't apologize. Afterward, young women gathered around me. Some asked how to say no to their parents. Others whispered about trust funds they were scared to touch. I didn't offer them neat solutions. I gave them the tools to ask better questions. Later, on the train back, Maura sent me a photo. Devin, stepping into a community center, a badge on his shirt, volunteer financial literacy support. I stared at it, then texted her back. It's not redemption, but it's a start. That night, I stayed late at the Vera Foundation office. The hallway was dark, except for the soft glow of our mission statement, printed across the wall. We believe real love never demands silence. I ran my fingers across the words, then turned off the light. One last thing. I took a walk by the river. The sky was already dark, and the breeze pulled at my coat. I paused at the same bench I used to sit on with Vera. I thought about her, then about myself. Not the woman who got tricked, the woman who came out whole. I didn't look back. Before we close this chapter, let me leave you with this. If there's one truth I've learned, it's this. Boundaries aren't betrayals. Saying no, walking away, protecting what's yours, it doesn't make you cruel. It makes you conscious. We don't owe our silence to the people who thrive on it. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for your family is to stop enabling the harm they've normalized. I used to think loyalty meant endurance, but now I know it means accountability. It means telling the truth, even if your voice shakes. It means standing alone, if that's what it takes to stand for what's right. Maybe you've seen shadows of your own story in mine, whether it's family manipulation, betrayal, or the quiet pressure to stay small for someone else's comfort. If so, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not weak for choosing yourself. So let me ask you, have you ever had to choose between your peace and your family's approval? What did you decide, and how did it shape you? Let me know in the comments. If this story touched you, drop a 1 below or tell me where you're watching from. And if it didn't, that's okay too. I'd love to hear your perspective. What did this story make you feel? What would you have done differently? If this video resonated with you, or even just made you think, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story. Because around here, we don't just tell stories. We tell the truth people are afraid to say out loud. Until next time, protect your peace, and don't be afraid to rewrite the script.